Happy Wednesday, everyone.
What's up?
I'm Dr. Elliot Hedman from the MIT Media Lab. Over the last 15 years, I've had the privilege of helping companies like these build their ed tech products. Worked with a lot of kids, and I've worked with a lot of companies. And right now, I work for a company called Robots and Pencils, and it's my job to help organizations think about what is the future vision of AI. But before we get into this future, let's go a little bit into the past. This was my senior book photo. And I need to tell you a story. I grew up in a rural town in Colorado. There were 3 basketball teams. There was the varsity, the junior varsity, and I was on, if you couldn't do those 2, the C team. We would drive 2 hours to go play a game of basketball. And every time I did, I would be there sitting on the bench for 90 minutes. The coach wouldn't even put me on the floor for even a minute. I hated it. It was the worst experience I had in high school. And the thing is I didn't do anything about it. I didn't go to my coach. I didn't say, what do I need to do to fix this? I just kind of grinned and bared it. But I felt like I needed to be too vulnerable. I would have to admit weakness. I'd have to ask for help. In high school, Elliot just didn't want to do that. So I couldn't ask my coach for help. I'm going to define this as learner agency, knowing how to ask for help. What I want to make a claim today is that asking for help is a skill. It is a skill that we can learn. I'm going to give you another analogy here. If you go to a library, you probably know how to say, I'd like to check out the next Harry Potter. But if you go to a library, most people don't know that they can ask, I'm thinking about switching careers. What should I do? That's asking for help. But we don't know we can do it. I volunteer at the Boys and Girls Club for the last 12 years. And those students have so many questions that they want to ask for help, but they don't know how. Things like, should I become a professional football player? Should I go to college? How do I get a job? How do I make new friends? How do I deal with my teacher? Should I be in a relationship? The students I work with here don't always have working models about how to answer those questions. And so they're kind of left with unanswered, unresolved life challenges. So in my free time, I started a very tiny volunteer project called Superpowered, where I help tutor kids how to use AI. And what I'm going to share for you now is some of their stories. We're going to start with Victor. Victor is a 9th grader in the Ukraine. I asked Victor, what is the thing you care the most about? What problem are you facing? I'm just bad at commas. He gets really bad grades around commas. And I was like, well, let's see if we can work on that. I asked Victor, so your dad's a computer scientist. Do you use AI? And his response is, yeah, I asked ChatGPT, can you put in the commas for me? And that kind of works, but he keeps getting bad grades still. And so what I told him is, well, let's rephrase your question. Can you do a transformational question, teach me how to put in commas, where you actually have that learning prompt in there? What happened after that is that ChatGPT started asking Victor, like a little game. I'm going to give you a sentence, and you have to put in the comment and tell me why you put it in. And I'm going to give you feedback. A few of those rounds, and ChatGPT told Victor, if you do this for 15 minutes a day for the next 4 days, you'll be an expert in commas. Victor was astounding. I never knew it could do that. And I get that same phrase from everyone I tutor. It's this aha moment that AI isn't just for answers, it's for improvement. This is Sandra. I asked Sandra what is her biggest challenge, and she's in 8th grade. She is deeply worried about the first day of high school. And I said, well, let's work with ChatGPT on it. First off, ChatGPT helped her clarify, what do you mean by you're worried about the first day of high school? She was worried she wasn't going to make friends. And specifically, she didn't know who she was going to sit with during lunch. So ChatGPT and her had a conversation, and they identified that she has a friend at the same lunch period. She's going to talk to that friend, and they're going to sit together during lunch. Now, You might be thinking, okay, it's just a lunch period. This isn't a grandiose thing. But think about this. This is an eighth grade girl who's identifying her own problem, coming up with a solution, and solving it. She's owning her learning. This is a huge jump in a matter of 30 minutes. This is Aaron. Aaron is a freshman in college, and I was talking to him, and he's getting pretty nervous because he had his first job interview ever. He wanted to be a resident advisor. And I said, well, how are you using AI to help you with your job? He's like, you can do that? And I explained to him, ask AI, one, what are the questions I'm going to be asked? And then two, answer those questions and get feedback. And he did exactly that. I get a call back from Aaron a week later, and he says, they asked the exact same questions that ChatGPT did. And I knew exactly how to answer them, and I got the job. He was so excited about that. Okay, now it's going to get a little bit more complicated. This is Gavin. Gavin is a freshman in high school. He's like kind of your like kick-ass freshman. He's like taking Algebra 2 already on the side. He wants to go to finance. He loves doing golf. But his biggest challenge is he's a part of the National Honor Society and he has to do volunteer hours. And he doesn't know where to go for volunteer. He types into ChatGPT, where should I go for volunteer? It points him to a bunch of things like pet shelters and things like that. And he's like, that's not that interesting to me. And I'm like, well, let's rephrase your question. Let's not ask, where are the volunteer opportunities? Let's say, can you help me reflect on what an awesome volunteer activity would be for me? So ChatGPT and him started having a conversation. He realized, one, you can do volunteer work around the environment. And then two, it's not just picking up trash. He can help with business logistics. He can help with marketing. And his eyes lit up. He got so excited. Wait a second, this sounds amazing. So within 30 minutes in a conversation with ChatGPT, Gavin was persuaded that volunteering might be for him. And the last one I want to talk about is Cody. Cody was a little bit of a shocker for me. He wants to be a visual designer. He wants to make sports apps for Facebook. Now, I'm a designer myself. And one of the first things Cody told me was, I'm not going to go to college. I'm already a good designer. I'm Adobe Photoshop certified. And now as a designer, I was like, no. Adobe Photoshop certified does not mean you're a good designer yet. But Cody's only 18. How should he know? Now, what I immediately wanted to do as an adult is be like, no, Cody, shake him right across the face. Like, don't do it, Cody, don't do it. As many of you who are teachers probably know, that wouldn't work. He doesn't know who I am. I have no established relationship with Cody. So what I did instead, it was kind of improv it. I said, Cody, could you just tell that to ChatGPT and just see where that conversation goes? So he types in, I'm a designer, but I'm not getting enough clients. I think I'm a good designer. I'm Adobe Photoshop certified. What should I do? And then he starts having a conversation with ChatGPT. ChatGPT says, this design's actually pretty good. It evaluates it. But then it tells him, your problem isn't your talent. Your problem is your network. You don't have any connections. And you don't have any connections because you don't have any credibility. And then they start brainstorming like, oh, I might want to apply for that internship at ASU. And I might actually want to consider college. This is all in like 40 minutes of just talking to ChatGPT. I could stay back and let him discover this on his own. I put my picture up there in the yearbook because this is not just about high school students. I just turned in my taxes and I had AI go through all of my expenses and think about what are the things I should do with my taxes. I gave it to my tax accountant and he's like, how did you get all this information? What did you just do? And I explained to him how he could use Cloud Code to actually really enhance how we do taxes in a much more accurate way. And so even adults don't necessarily have this learner agency where they're open to and excited about learning all the cool things they can do with AI. So what is the gap? I think everyone in this room knows that students like to cheat with AI. And I've interviewed over 40 of them. I'm well aware of this issue, but I want to make an argument for you. It's not because that's the only thing they like to do. It's because it's the only thing they know how to do. Students are teaching each other AI. We're not teaching them AI. They're teaching each other. We're asking them to write this paper. It's literally the only question we're giving them, write this paper. So they're taking what we say and then they're putting it in the AI. So the only model they're given is the model how to cheat. So I've gone to a lot of talks in the last 3 days around the future of AI literacy. And a lot of it's around like We need to teach machine learning or bias and things like that. And there is a place for that. But I want to make a different argument from what I'm doing with my tutoring. This isn't 10 key prompts. It's not like this is the one question to ask and you'll have solved it. This isn't an app. You can just do this in ChatGPT. This is a new way of thinking that needs to be modeled to the students so they can learn how to use this powerful tool. So I want to go through the 5-step process that I use when I tutor students. The first problem is they don't know what the problem is. Specifically, they need to name it. Where students are so used to being told exactly what to think, exactly what to ask, exactly what to do, they don't have the capacity to reflect back and say, this is what's important to me. So first we figure out a problem. But then the problem is going to be something like this. I'm worried about high school. Okay, now we need to clarify it. What do you mean you're worried about high school? ChatGPT is excellent for this. You just put it in, can you help me clarify my problem? And it'll start asking questions and getting it clarified. But then they'll be like, I'm worried about having friends. If you put that in ChatGPT, it will give you a Wikipedia article on how to make friends. That's not what you want. So then the third step is you need to create a learning goal. It's not, I'm worried about friends. Can you help me come up with a strategy on how to deal with lunch? That is a learning goal that I can actually do something around. And now you need to ask AI to coach you. If I had it my way, every problem kids had, they would immediately go to AI. First step, go to AI. See if it can solve it for you. It can solve so many things, but they're just not used to thinking that AI can be a thinking partner. And then the last part is iterate. ChatGPT is not perfect. A lot of times it's not going to give you the right answer and you're not going to be happy with it. It doesn't mean that it's broken. It means you got to try new things, be creative, be explorative. And so that's the last piece you have to teach. Why is this important? Microsoft just pledged $4 billion towards AI education. And as I said before, I fear that this money in AI literacy is going towards, hey guys, let's learn about machine learning. Let's learn about all these things inside the computer and bias and hallucinations. And there is a place for that. But what I would argue, this thing that needs to be taught more than any of that, you know where this is going, is learner agency. I'll give my greatest argument towards this. If you go onto Cloud Code right now, I bet any of you, show hands, has anyone ever touched this learn button? Okay, for the record, okay, one person has. I respect that. I have pushed it too. But there's a learn button. You can literally click it to start learning. A, the students don't know there's a learn button. And B, they have no incentive or modeling or understanding why they should push learn and not just please write my paper for me. We need to change that. So the first step of teaching AI literacy needs to be learner agency. And so I want to finish this with a conversation I had with ChatGPT. I told ChatGPT my story about being a basketball player. And I said, what should Elliot have prompted? I'm stuck on the bench on the C team basketball team. Help me come up with a plan and think about how to talk to my coach. When I typed that out, like a tear came to my eye. Like it really hit my gut. Like that is exactly what I wanted to have. There are millions of bench formers out there. And they all have a coach right here in their pocket. They just don't know how to ask for help. And it's our job to model for them and show them how to use that coach. Thank you. I was trying to think how I could give back to all you guys coming here. It means so much that you came. So I am going to throw a free AI for Teacher workshop. If you scan that QR code, you can put in your email and it'll tell you about what it's going to be and also give you the video of this talk. But this workshop, I'm going to just teach it, bring whatever problem you're facing, we'll use AI to build it. A lot of energy is going towards, I'll show you how to vibe code. We can build a website. And if you want, we can do whatever you like on that. I think, oh my God, I have 5 minutes left. God, that feels good. I want to open it up. I actually think this is better as a conversation than a presentation. Any questions for me?
Do you notice the difference? You mentioned Claude and ChatGPT. We have a Gemini Pro account that we're learning about. Is there a better platform for the coaching?
That's a really good question. Oh my God, I don't know what the answer is too. The question is, what's the best platform for coaching? Is it ChatGPT? Is it Claude? Is it Gemini? Is it Khan Academy? I didn't do that one. But The answer is I start where the students are at. Most of the students don't even know Claude exists. Like they just use ChatGPT. It's like AI and ChatGPT are synonymous for them. So I use something that they're comfortable with, that they already have account with. Like it's way more important to work in their environment. I actually think Claude gives better answers than ChatGPT, but it doesn't matter. Like we're talking really basic conversations here. We're not talking about these deep philosophical things. What matters way more than the platform you use is the prompt you're using. So there's a really big difference between put in my commas and help me learn how to put in commas. You'll get a completely different experience on that, and that's way more important than the tool you use.
Colin, was gonna see it.
Hey,
I'm wondering, like, in your experience, what you see from these conversations, is AI good at doing that handoff of being like, hey, you should probably talk to an adult about this? Like, if you're really, really worried about having friends, like, seek out support from another person as opposed to a chatbot.
Yeah, 100%. My brother's a computer science teacher. We go back and forth on this one a lot. About the question is, can ChatGPT facilitate a handoff? Absolutely not. In fact, there's a real hard challenge in my coaching. I didn't want to talk about the things that don't work. I'm like, yeah, we'll just give you some hope in this fact. But no, it's like we get through it. But there's a real challenge here that I'm facing over and over again, which is in order to evaluate whether the output is quality or not, you kind of need to be an expert. So I'll give you an example. Cody, so he's like, all right, let's fix my business up. Like, how do I get more clients? And ChatGPT's like, all you need is a brand. You just need a message on Facebook and you'll survive. Like, no, ChatGPT, no. Don't say that. I'm like, ethically, I'm required to tell you that's wrong at the end of the coaching session. So, like, there's like this humbleness about being able to be skeptical about answers and seek other resources. Now, I'm going to spin it around. Guess what? That's also a skill, right? Like, we need to teach students to question everything, right? But we don't do that. We give them facts and, like, memorize these facts. Did you get the facts correct? We don't teach them, yeah, maybe that's right. Maybe that's wrong. How can we ask that question to figure that out? Like, how can we go to other resources? How can we talk to other people, right? Like, I practice this talk around 6 different people, and ChatGPT had a very different answer than the 6 people I practiced it with. And they both had information, but you have to be a good thinker to be able to play in this world.
Perhaps I should ask AI, but you're here. How can I teach myself to ask better prompts?
Yeah. That's another really hard one. How do we get ourselves to ask better prompts? I don't know the answer to that one. I'm getting really good at prompting because I use ChatGPT like probably 1,000 times a day. Right? Well, not 1,000. That's way too many. 200 times a day. When I'm coding, it gets to 1,000. So I am constantly in dialogue, and I'm constantly being curious. It's like, try this out, see if that works. Try this out, see if that works. It's like it's a game where you're just playing and seeing what happens, and you're going back and forth. As I said before, it is not a list of these are the 10 things you should ask. It is a mindset where you're curious and you're experimenting and you're iterating. That's how I got into it. I never watched a YouTube video about how to prompt. We'll go here and then we'll go.
I was using ChatGPT yesterday to brainstorm with, and one thing I noticed that I'm curious about with students, you have to read a lot. Like
Yeah.
reading a lot working with ChatGPT. Do you notice that as a problem with students who are getting?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked that question. I had a flight on this because I care a lot about it, but I'm like, it doesn't fit in time. The question was, if you ask ChatGPT a question, it'll give you a Wikipedia article that takes like 20 minutes to read through. And you probably asked the wrong question too. So you're reading through a bunch of information that's not helpful. So these are some of the things I help my students with. It's actually the first thing we go on, even before I showed you that methodology. First, you need to say, I am a middle schooler. I am a high schooler. Please speak to me like that. You don't even have to say that. I'll start speaking like that. Second, you need to say, please only give me one idea or one question at a time. I actually do that as an adult all the time. AI is just built to just be verbose, which is weird. And you just have to tell it, just talk to me in like little tiny bits. And it's really important for the students because they can't think past one question. As soon as you ask them 3 or 4 questions, they get overwhelmed and then they start skimming and there's no information. And then what's also fun if you only ask one question at a time, it starts adapting its questions and its answers based off of the little pieces of information you're giving it. So I think it's mandatory to do that. Oh, another thing I do in that space is I tell them to stop typing. I think it's a crime that we stop teaching students to type now. I learned to type in the 80s. I don't know what happened, but most of my students can't type very well. And so their typing actually slows down their thinking considerably. So it'll take about 2 minutes to ask a question, and that's not how fast I want it to interact. So I teach them all to use the microphone, and I teach them to just speak to ChatGPT as if they're talking to me. Just like talk out loud, make mistakes, just say what you're thinking instead of this, oh, I need to spell this correctly and I need to put the grammar in. You really have to get into this more natural flow of language. That's probably a bigger answer than you thought you were going to get for that question.
So speaking of typing, where did AI started that leads student handwriting?
Oh my God, that's impressive.
Give feedback without giving the student the answer. The question from the team is, how do you sort of prevent students from circumventing the AI and preventing the struggle? Because the struggle is good. How do you prevent that?
Now you're asking the deep question. I actually gave a talk on this last year. Maybe I'll send out my last talk on this QR code so you guys can see it. I think there are a lot of answers. I think teachers are being really creative on how to get that productive friction. If you look at my argument, you could probably take a guess what I kind of landed on this year. It's because we're asking the wrong question. It's not write a paper, it's learn how to write a paper. Very, very different questions. But the students only think it's learn to write a paper. It's put the commas in the right place, not learn to write commas. And so I think I built the whole tool to help with helping catch students cheating. But now I'm way more convinced that if we don't switch their mindset, they don't understand they're cheating. They don't understand that they're losing out on something, and they don't understand the potential that they could be going. So I'm much more interested in framing the question differently instead of catching them and making the hard work required. There's room for both. One more question.
I think you're naming something important, that it's the tool isn't the problem, it's how we like go about using the tool. And you gave a beautiful example of doing that like on your own, like in your classroom. But do you have any thoughts about like influencing that at a higher level? Because that to me is the bigger issue. like our system kind of encourages cheating if you really think about it. Not to get into that too much.
No, I completely agree with you. The question is, how do we do this on a bigger system level? Like, it's great that you're doing this with individual kids, but how do we get a whole school to have this mindset? As I said, my brother's a really good computer science teacher in Chicago. He told me, don't ever say the word school in your talk. Don't even mention it. You guys, the teachers and the systems, they have a lot of challenges and a lot of struggles to get this kind of culture in there. This type of learner agency culture is not built in a traditional school. It's kind of more in a project-based learning school, but it's not there. So it's going to require a lot of heavy lifting, some really deep thinking. I'm just trying to share a message so the people who care about it can like say, Dr. Elliott says this is a good idea, but it really is going to require a lot of internal mechanisms. It's not just here you go, put this poster in your room and the kids will get it. And if you guys have any ideas on that, my next goal is to start teaching more at the college level and the high school level, this in actual classrooms instead of just one-on-one in my rogue anthropological way. So thank you all. Appreciate it.